The wind off Lake Michigan cut through Chicago like a blade in late November. Sharp and unforgiving. At 5 a.m., the city was still swallowed by darkness, the kind that felt thick enough to touch. Inside a modest but well-kept condominium in the Lincoln Park neighborhood, a soft blue glow spilled from a large desktop monitor onto the face of Za Vance. Za sat hunched forward in her ergonomic chair, eyes bloodshot but fiercely focused. Her curly hair was twisted into a messy bun held together by a single pencil. Around her, the home office looked like the command center of an obsessed artist. Rolls of blueprints curled at the edges, physical samples of imported Italian porcelain paving stones stacked in neat rows, color swatches of frost-resistant evergreens pinned to a corkboard, and at least 7 half-empty mugs of tea that had gone cold hours ago. On the screen, a highly detailed 3D model rotated slowly. It was the central promenade of Whispering Pines Park, the crown jewel of Highland Bluffs, an ultra-exclusive, gated community on the North Shore where homes started at 8 figures, and the homeowners' association fees could buy a new luxury car every year. The promenade wound gracefully between clusters of mature trees, illuminated by subtle uplighting that would make the snow-covered branches glow like something out of a winter fairy tale. Za adjusted the height of the curb along one section by a mere 2 inches, then zoomed in on the placement of a custom bronze fountain. Every detail had to be perfect. This project wasn't just another contract. It was everything. For Za, a 34-year-old, black woman who had spent her childhood bouncing between 12 different foster homes, this $2.5 million design fee represented far more than money. It was validation, proof. The little girl who once pressed her face against the wrought iron fence of a neighborhood exactly like Highland Bluffs, dreaming of the manicured lawns and 3-story mansions on the other side, was now the one deciding what those lawns would look like. The caseworker's harsh words from 20 years ago still echoed sometimes in quiet moments. "Stop staring, girl. That life ain't for the likes of you." Za smiled faintly at the memory. She was about to prove that caseworker, and everyone else who had ever doubted her, dead wrong. The door behind her creaked open. Omari Vance, her husband of 9 years, shuffled in wearing gray sweatpants and a faded Morehouse t-shirt, rubbing sleep from his eyes. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a gentle smile that had first caught her attention back when they met at a networking event for young, black professionals. "Za, baby," he said, voice thick with sleep as he placed his warm hands on her tense shoulders and kneaded gently. "You're up all night again?" "It's 5 in the morning. "I know," she murmured, still clicking and dragging elements on the screen. "But look at these evergreens. They're a special hybrid, bred in Norway for extreme cold. They'll survive -20 without dropping a needle. And with the uplighting I specified, it's going to look straight out of Architectural Digest when the snow hits." Omari yawned and leaned down to kiss the top of her head. "It already looks amazing." "You're amazing. But you've still got a week and a half before the final presentation to the suppliers. You're going to run yourself into the ground at this rate." Za finally tore her eyes away from the screen and tilted her head back to look at him. "I can't stop now. This isn't just a park, Omari. This is my ticket. After this, the big firms will be calling me, not the other way around. No more scraping for mid-tier municipal contracts. This is the big leagues." Omari sighed softly. He understood, maybe better than anyone. He was a mid-level project manager at a logistics firm downtown. Steady, respectable work, but nothing that set the world on fire. Za's ambition had always been the brighter flame in their marriage. He admired it, even if it sometimes left him feeling like he was standing in her shadow. "I get it," he said. "I do, just promise me you'll sleep at least a few hours before Jalen wakes up for school." Za reached up and squeezed one of his hands. "Promise." He lingered for a moment, watching the model rotate on the screen, then padded back toward their bedroom. Za turned back to her work, the soft clicks of her mouse the only sound in the quiet apartment. She thought about how far she'd come. College on full, scholarship, architecture and landscape, design at University of Illinois, graduate degree paid for with grants, internships, and sheer stubbornness. Starting her own small firm 5 years ago with nothing but a laptop, a dream, and a tiny SBA loan. Every milestone had been earned through sleepless nights and relentless hustle. And now Whispering Pines, the client, Franklin Sterling, a self-made logistics billionaire who had built Highland Bluffs as his legacy development, had taken a chance on her firm after seeing her portfolio. He wanted something timeless yet innovative, something that would make national design magazines. Za had poured her soul into it for over a year. Every tree, every light fixture, every curve of the walking path was deliberate. She saved the latest version of the master file, then opened the external backup drive connected via USB and ran another full backup just in case. She was meticulous about backups, local drive, encrypted cloud storage, and a secondary off-site drive stored in a fireproof safe. Years of living with instability had taught her never to trust that good things would last, unless you protected them fiercely. By 6:30 a.m., the first hints of gray light began to seep through the blinds. Za finally stood, stretched, and felt the ache in her lower back. She tiptoed into the kitchen to start coffee. Jalen, their 8-year-old son, would be up soon for school. He was a bright, sensitive boy with Omari's height and Za's intense brown eyes. He loved drawing, always, sketching superheroes or fantastical gardens, inspired by his mom's work. As the coffee brewed, Za leaned against the counter and let herself daydream for just a moment. After this project, they could finally put a down payment on a house. Somewhere with a yard for Jalen, maybe even in a good school district outside the city. She smiled at the thought. Sunday arrived too quickly, as it always did. Za would have happily spent the day rendering final visuals, but Omari had insisted they keep their standing tradition of Sunday. Dinner at his mother's house. "Come on, babe," Omari had pleaded Saturday night. "If we skip again, she'll be blowing up my phone all week." You know how she gets? Za did know. Constance Vance, Omari's mother, was a force of nature wrapped in church hats and passive-aggressive comments. A widow who had raised 3 children alone after her husband, a longtime city worker, passed suddenly 10 years ago. She lived in a sturdy brick bungalow on the south side that her late husband had paid off decades earlier. The house was immaculate, filled with family photos, conspicuously lacking any of Za in the prominent spots, and smelled perpetually of pine sol and simmering greens. Za had learned early in the relationship that Constance had very specific ideas about what a wife and mother should be. Ideas that did not include late nights at a computer designing parks for rich people. They arrived at 3 p.m. sharp, because being even 5 minutes late was considered a mortal sin in Constance's world. Jalen bounded out of the car first, eager for his grandmother's hugs and the inevitable bag of snacks she always had ready. Constance opened the door wearing a floral dress and her trademark tight smile, the one that never quite reached her eyes. When she looked at Za, "There's my grandbaby," she cooed, pulling Jalen into a smothering embrace and planting loud kisses on both cheeks. "Look at you getting so big. Future linebacker right here." She finally acknowledged Omari with a warm hug, then turned to Za with a nod that felt like a dismissal. "Y'all come on in. Food's almost ready." The dining room table was a masterpiece of Southern cooking. Golden roast chicken resting on a platter, macaroni and cheese baked to bubbling perfection, collard greens simmered with smoked turkey, candied yams glistening with brown sugar, and cornbread muffins still steaming. They sat, grace was said. Plates were filled. Conversation started innocently enough. Jalen's school, Omari's job, neighborhood gossip. Then Constance steered it exactly where Za knew she would. "Shanice called me yesterday," Constance announced proudly, pouring sweet tea from an antique crystal pitcher. She finally signed little Kiki up for piano lessons. Said it's never too early to give a young lady some culture. Za nodded politely. Shanice, Omari's older sister, was the golden child. Married to a dentist, 2 perfect daughters, big house in Flossmoor. "And Omari," Constance continued, eyes gleaming, "when are you and Za going to bless me with more grandbabies? Jalen's growing up all alone. He needs siblings." Omari shifted uncomfortably. "Ma, we've talked about this." "I'm just saying," Constance pressed, undeterred. "A boy needs brothers and sisters. And Za—" She turned her gaze fully on her daughter-in-law now, the smile sharpening. "You're always so busy with your little drawings and flowers. When are you going to focus on real woman's work? Taking care of home and family?" Za felt heat rise in her chest. She carefully set down her fork. "I have a very important project right now, Constance," she said evenly. "A multi-million-dollar contract that will—" Constance waved a dismissive hand. "A project. Back in my day, we knew what mattered. Keeping house, raising children, cooking proper meals for your husband. That's real work, not this landscaping nonsense. The word nonsense landed like a slap. Za counted slowly to 10 in her head, then to 20. She had perfected the art of not reacting years ago. Omari reached under the table and squeezed her knee supportively, but said nothing. After dinner, Constance took Jalen to the back room to look at old photo albums. Za heard muffled laughter, the crinkle of candy wrappers, and her mother-in-law's low voice speaking to her grandson in that syrupy tone she reserved only for him. On the drive home, silence hung heavy in the car until Za finally spoke. "Your mother is never going to accept me, Omari." He sighed. "She's old school, set in her ways. She doesn't mean half of what she says." Za turned to look at him. "She's been saying it for 9 years. Ever since the first time I met her and told her I grew up in foster care. You remember her face? Like I'd admitted to a crime." Omari gripped the steering wheel tighter. "She'll come around eventually." Za laughed bitterly. "No, she won't. She's decided I'm not good enough for her son. Never was, never will be." They rode the rest of the way in silence. Later that night, as Za lay in bed staring at the ceiling, memories flooded back uninvited. The wedding, Constance loudly telling her church friend, within Za's earshot, "Well, what can you do? My son is in love. But you know what they say about those foster kids. Bad blood." When Jalen was born, Constance's first words after inspecting the newborn, "Thank the Lord he's got the Vance nose. Let's hope he takes after our side." Za rolled onto her side and pulled the blanket higher. She had spent years trying to win Constance over, cooking her favorite dishes, remembering birthdays, inviting her to every milestone. Nothing ever changed the older woman's mind. But lately something felt different. Constance had been coming over more often, always with gifts for Jalen. Always lingering a little too long near Za's office door. Za didn't know it yet, but the storm was already gathering. The weeks leading, up to the final supplier meeting, blurred into a relentless rhythm of work, sleep deprivation and quiet unease. Vance pushed herself harder than ever, determined to make Whispering Pines flawless. She spent hours refining the irrigation schematics, ensuring the automated system would conserve water while keeping the imported grasses lush even in Chicago's brutal summers. She met virtually with nurseries in Oregon and the Netherlands, negotiating prices on the rare evergreens that would anchor the winter garden. Every detail was scrutinized, every rendering polished until it gleamed. At home, the atmosphere grew subtly heavier. Constance Vance began showing up unannounced more frequently, always with an excuse centered around Jalen. One Tuesday afternoon, Za was deep in a 3D modeling session when the doorbell rang. She heard Jalen's excited footsteps racing to answer it, followed by Constance's booming voice. "Grandbaby, look what Grandma brought you." Za emerged from her office to find her mother-in-law unloading a plastic grocery bag filled with junk food, flaming hot chips, gummy worms, chocolate bars, and a giant bag of cheese popcorn. Jalen's eyes were wide with delight. "Constance," Za said, forcing a neutral tone, "we've talked about this. We're trying to limit sugar during the week." Constance waved her off with a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, let the boy live a little. He's growing. He needs energy." She pulled Jalen close and whispered loudly enough for Za to hear. "Don't worry, baby. Grandma's treats are our little secret." Za felt a prickle of irritation but let it go. She had a deadline looming and no energy for another battle. Later that evening, while Za was in the bathroom washing up, she overheard voices from the kitchen. Constance's low murmur and Jalen's higher-pitched responses. Curiosity pulled her closer to the cracked door. "Show Grandma how Mommy turns on her big computer," Constance was saying sweetly. "I want to learn how to draw pretty pictures like she does." "It's easy, Grandma," Jalen replied proudly. "First you press the power button, then Mommy types in her secret code." "What's the secret code, baby? Can you show me?" Za's heart skipped. She pushed the door open and stepped in just as Constance was holding her phone up, recording the screen as Jalen demonstrated the login sequence. "Constance, what are you doing?" Za's voice was sharp. The older woman startled, quickly lowering her phone. "Oh, nothing, honey. Jalen was just showing me how your fancy machine works. I'm old. I don't understand all this technology. Just wanted to see." Za crossed her arms. "Please don't record anything on my computer. Those files are confidential." Constance's face shifted into practiced offense. "Well, excuse me for being curious. You act like I'm here to steal your little drawings." She gathered her purse dramatically. I'll just take my old self home then. Jalen looked confused and a little guilty. Za knelt down to his level. It's okay, baby. Grandma didn't mean any harm. But as Constance limped out the door, feigning hurt feelings, Za couldn't shake the chill that settled in her stomach. A few days later, Chanice, Omari's older sister, started calling more often. The conversations always seemed innocent on the surface. Hey, big brother, Chanice would say when Omari answered. Just checking in. How y'all holding up? How's Za doing with that big project of hers? Omari, ever the dutiful son and brother, would chat freely. She's stressed but excited. Got this huge meeting coming up. Friday with suppliers flying in from New York. She'll be gone 3, maybe 4 hours. Friday, huh? Chanice's voice would brighten. That's a big deal. Tell her I said break a leg. Za overheard one of these calls while making dinner and frowned. Why was Chanice suddenly so interested in her schedule? 3 days before the fateful Friday, Constance arrived again without warning. Jalen had come home from school with a fever, so Za was working from home while keeping an eye on him. The doorbell rang mid-afternoon. Za opened it to find Constance holding a thermos. I made bone broth for my sick grandbaby. Good for the immune system. Za stepped aside reluctantly. Thank you. That's thoughtful. Constance breezed past her straight to the office doorway, peering in at the glowing monitor where the Whispering Pines model rotated. Oh my, look at all this, she said, reaching toward the mouse. Za moved quickly, intercepting her hand. Please don't touch anything, Constance. These are critical files. Constance pulled back as if burned. Well, I never. You think I'm going to break your precious computer? I just wanted to see what keeps you locked away from your family all day. Before Za could respond, Constance waved her arm, dramatically and accidentally, knocked over a mug of cold coffee on the desk. Dark liquid spread toward the keyboard. Oh Lord, I'm so clumsy, Constance exclaimed, though her eyes flicked quickly around the room, taking, in the tower's position under the desk, the tangle of cables, the external backup drive in the open bottom drawer. Za grabbed tissues and blotted frantically. It's fine. I've got it. Constance lingered a moment longer. You look terrible, by the way. Bags under your eyes. This is what happens when a woman chooses career over family. She paused at the door. Some lessons you just can't teach someone who didn't grow up with proper values. The door closed behind her with a soft click that felt final. That same evening, disaster struck again, this time with the nanny. Za's phone rang while she and Omari were eating dinner. It was Maria, their reliable nanny of 3 years. Mrs. Vance, I am so sorry, Maria said, voice trembling. My mother had a mini-stroke this afternoon. They rushed her to Rush Hospital. I have to be with her. Za's fork froze halfway to her mouth. Maria, tomorrow is my biggest meeting. The suppliers are flying in specifically. I know. I feel terrible. But this is my mother. I can't leave her. The call ended with apologies and no solution. Za paced the living room, panic rising. The meeting was at 10 a.m. in a conference center on the other side of the city. Traffic on the Kennedy Expressway could turn a 40-minute drive into 2 hours. Rescheduling wasn't an option. The New York team had tight schedules. Omari watched her pace. I'll stay home. I'll work remotely. Jalen can rest and watch cartoons. It'll be fine. Za stopped. Omari, promise me one thing. Do not let anyone in this apartment tomorrow, especially your mother. He frowned. Za, you're being paranoid? Why would... I'm serious. She grabbed his shoulders, forcing him to meet her eyes. I have a bad feeling. Something's off. Promise me. He sighed. Okay. I promise. No one comes in. Now go to bed. You need rest for tomorrow. Thursday night, Za triple-checked everything. She burned the entire project folder to a new external drive, uploaded a fresh encrypted backup to her cloud storage, and emailed herself the presentation file as an extra precaution. She practiced her pitch one last time in front of the mirror, smoothing her blazer and forcing confidence into her smile. Friday morning dawned cold and clear. Za kissed a still sleepy Jalen on the forehead, then Omari. Remember your promise, she said at the door. I remember. Go kill it, babe. You've got this. She heard the deadbolt click behind her as she stepped into the hallway. Down in the garage, she started her SUV, pulled out onto the street, and merged into early traffic. If the expressway stayed clear, she'd make it with time to spare. Back in the apartment, everything began to unravel. At 9:15 a.m., Omari's phone rang. Shanice's name flashed on the screen. Omari, it's a disaster, his sister wailed. My car broke down in the middle of Halsted and 95th. It just died. Won't start. I'm blocking traffic. People are honking. Okay, calm down, Omari said, switching to speaker so he could look up towing services. What happens when you turn the key? While he walked Shanice through basic troubleshooting, the building intercom buzzer sounded, long and insistent, as if someone were leaning on it. Jalen poked his head out of his bedroom, rubbing his eyes. Omari waved him back and pressed the intercom button. On the small black and white screen, Constance stood waving dramatically. Damn it, Omari muttered. Shanice heard through the phone. Mama's there? Let her in! Before Omari could respond, Constance's voice crackled through the speaker. Omari Vance, open this door right now. The neighbors are watching me stand out here like a criminal. Ma, look, Za asked. Za, always Za. What am I, a thief? I brought medicine for my sick grandson, cough syrup. Tissues, and you leave your own mother on the street? Omari's finger hovered over the entry button. Za's warning echoed. But so did years of conditioning. Never disrespect. Mama, never let her feel unwanted. Constance leaned on the buzzer again. I know you're up there. Open this door! With a defeated sigh, Omari pressed the button. On the phone, Shanice suddenly sounded calmer. Oh, my neighbor just pulled up. He's gonna jump me. I think I'm good now. Talk later. The line went dead. Minutes later, Constance stormed into the apartment, huffing indignantly and brushing imaginary dust from her coat. Nice wife you got, she snapped, telling you to keep your mother out like I'm some stranger. She marched to the kitchen and slammed a pharmacy bag on the counter. Ma, I'm working, Omari said. I've got a client call in 10 minutes. You can sit with Jalen for a bit, but I need quiet. Constance was already pulling out a bottle of cherry-flavored syrup. You and your work, always hiding behind screens, just like her. Omari's work phone rang, an important client he couldn't ignore. Ma, please. 10 minutes. Watch Jalen. He retreated to the bedroom and closed the door. Constance waited until she heard his muffled voice on the call. Then she turned to Jalen, who was curled on the couch with a blanket. Sunshine, she whispered sweetly. Go watch cartoons in your room. Grandma needs to check something in Mommy's office. Remember our secret about the gaming console? This is part of the surprise. Jalen's eyes lit up. He nodded and scampered off. Constance moved quickly. She retrieved her phone and a small black USB drive from her purse, the one labeled Eraser that Dion, Omari's younger brother and an IT contractor, had prepared for her. She slipped into the office and sat at the desk. The computer was in sleep mode, blue light pulsing softly. She pressed the power button. The login screen appeared. Heart pounding, she opened her phone's notes app. Jalen tuned in 16, the password her grandson had innocently revealed days earlier. Her thick fingers fumbled on the keyboard. First try, wrong. Second, wrong. Third, success. The desktop opened. Folders everywhere, programs, icons. Suddenly, the computer's AI assistant spoke. Hello, I am your assistant. How can I help you today? Constance jumped, flailing. Her elbow knocked a potted cactus off the windowsill. It teetered, then fell, spines first, onto her foot. Ah, devil plant! She hissed, kicking off her shoe. Blood seeped through her stocking. She frantically turned the volume to 0, then inserted the USB drive. A simple program window opened. She located the folder labeled Whispering Pines Project, Final, and checked the box. Then clicked the large red button, Permanent Delete. A progress bar crawled, 10%. 20%? 47%. Grandma, can I have water? Jalen's voice from the doorway. Get out! Constance spun her chair to block the screen. Grandma's busy. Get it yourself. 82%, 94%, 100%. Deletion complete. Next, the backup. She yanked open the bottom drawer and found the silver external hard drive. Into her purse it went, along with the USB. Cloud storage. She opened the browser, went to saved passwords, found Za's cloud account, changed the password to Know Your Place 25. Logged out. Cleared history. 40 minutes after arriving. Constance limped out of the office, through the apartment, and out the front door, Omari still on his call, oblivious. By the time Za returned home at 3 p.m., exhausted, but triumphant from a successful meeting, her entire world had been quietly, deliberately destroyed. Zavance pushed through the apartment door at 3:15 p.m., her cheeks still flushed with triumph. The meeting with the New York suppliers had gone better than she could have dreamed. They loved the refined visuals, praised the sustainable irrigation plan, and best of all, offered a 15% discount on the entire lighting package after seeing how thoughtfully she had integrated their products. Franklin Sterling himself had sent a follow-up email while she was stuck in traffic on the Kennedy. "Impressive work today, Ms. Vance. Looking forward to the final delivery." She kicked off her heels in the entryway, already mentally drafting the thank you notes. "Omari, Jalen, I'm home." Omari appeared from the living room, phone still in hand, a sheepish expression on his face. "Hey, babe. How'd it go?" "Amazing," she said, dropping her bag and reaching for a hug. "They're on board with everything. We even saved money on—" She stopped. Something in his eyes, guilt, maybe fear, made her stomach tighten. "Listen," he said quickly, "don't get mad. Mom stopped by while you were gone." The world tilted. "What?" "I know you asked me not to let anyone in." But she was buzzing like crazy, screaming loud enough for the whole building to hear. Said she brought medicine for Jalen. "I couldn't just leave her on the street." Za's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "Where was she? What did she do?" "She was in the kitchen with Jalen most of the time." "It's fine." She left after about 40 minutes. Za didn't wait for more. She sprinted down the hallway, barefoot, heart hammering against her ribs. She burst into the office and woke the computer with a frantic shake of the mouse. The desktop loaded normally. She opened the main project drive. Then the folder labeled Whispering Pines Project, Final, empty. She blinked, refreshed, still empty. She checked subfolders, empty. Recycle bin, empty. She searched the entire drive for any file with Whispering Pines. In the name, nothing. Her hands shook as she yanked open the bottom drawer. The silver external backup drive was gone. She logged into her cloud storage. Password incorrect. She tried again. Again. "Omari." Her scream echoed through the apartment. "Omari, get in here now!" He ran in, Jalen trailing behind him, looking terrified. "What happened?" "The project is gone. Everything. Wiped clean. A year of work. The backup drive is missing. I can't log into the cloud." "Your mother did this." Omari stared at the blank folder, then at her. "Za, you're upset, I get it, but Mama can barely use her flip phone." "She couldn't. She used our 8-year-old son to get my password." "Omari, she's been fishing for weeks." Za turned to Jalen, kneeling so she was eye level with him. "Baby, come here. Tell Mommy exactly what Grandma did while I was gone." Jalen's lip trembled. He looked at his father, then the floor. "Grandma said it was a secret." "Jalen," Za said softly but firmly, "this is very important. Mommy needs the truth." He swallowed hard. She sat at your computer for a long time. She was clicking a lot, and she said some bad words. Like really bad ones. Then she got mad at your plant and kicked it." Za stood slowly, blood roaring in her ears. She looked at Omari. "Still think she's innocent?" He shook his head, but his voice was weak. "Maybe it was a virus, or the computer glitched. We can call tech support." Za ignored him and began tearing the apartment apart. She checked every drawer, every shelf, every corner. Something wasn't adding up. How had Constance known exactly when she'd be gone for hours? How had the nanny canceled on the one day it mattered most? In the living room, on the bookshelf between worn copies of Maya Angelou's I Know, Why the Caged Bird Sings and Toni Morrison's Beloved, she spotted something odd, a small black USB nightlight she didn't remember buying. It looked innocent enough, a soft white glow plugged into the wall outlet. She pulled it out and turned it over. A tiny lens stared back at her. A hidden camera. Her knees buckled. She sank onto the couch, the device clutched in her trembling hand. Omari walked in. "What's that?" She held it up. "A spy camera. In our home. Your family has been watching us, listening to us." His face drained of color as he took it. This has to be a mistake." "A mistake?" Her laugh was hollow. "The deleted files are a mistake too? The missing backup? The cloud password changed? Wake up, Omari. Your mother, your sister, your brother. They planned this. They used Jalen to get access. Waited for the perfect day and destroyed my life's work." Omari sat heavily in the armchair. "Dayan did come over a couple weeks ago to fix the Wi-Fi router." Za's eyes blazed. "Exactly." He planted it. Omari rubbed his face. "We don't know that. There could be another explanation." "There is no other explanation." She stood, pacing. "They've hated me from day one because I'm from foster care. Because I don't fit their idea of family. Your mother has waited 9 Years for a chance to prove I don't belong. And you let her in today. He flinched. I didn't know. You promised me, her voice cracked. You promised. Silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. That night, Omari slept on the couch. Za didn't sleep at all. She sat at the kitchen table under the harsh overhead light, staring at the city lights beyond the window. Jalen's soft snores drifted from his room. The hidden camera sat in front of her like evidence in a crime scene. Around 4 a.m., she made a decision. She opened her phone and scrolled to an old college contact she hadn't spoken to in years, Tavares Reynolds. They'd taken several architecture studios together at U of He'd gone into cybersecurity. After graduation, started his own private investigation firm specializing in digital forensics. She texted, Tavares, it's Za Vance. Used to be Za Carter in school. I don't know if you remember me, but I desperately need your help. Can we meet tomorrow? His reply came within minutes. Of course I remember you. The woman who outdesigned all of us. Coffee tomorrow? Hyde Park, name the spot. They met the next morning at Robust Coffee on 53rd Street, a quiet spot away from downtown eyes. Tavares had filled out since college, broad shoulders, salt and pepper beard, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He wore a navy peacoat and carried a leather notebook. Za told him everything. 9 years of microaggressions and outright hostility from Constance. The sudden interest in her schedule. The password phishing through Jalen. The perfectly timed nanny emergency. The betrayal by Omari letting Constance in. The deletion. The hidden camera. Tavares listened without interrupting, taking meticulous notes. When she finished, he closed the notebook slowly. That's a lot. You want to go legal? I want my name cleared, my work's value compensated, and I want them to pay for what they did. I don't care if it's family. They crossed every line. He nodded. It won't be easy. Juries and judges can be soft on family disputes, but the hidden camera alone is a serious privacy violation. The deletion could be criminal computer tampering. We start with evidence. He slid a business card across the table. True North Investigations, Digital Forensics and Private Security. My team is ex-Chicago PD, Cybercrimes Unit and former NSA. If there's a digital footprint, we'll find it. First thing, bring me your computer, router, and that camera. We'll image everything before anyone can tamper further. Za exhaled for the first time in 24 hours. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. One more question. How far do you want to go? This could tear your marriage apart. She thought of Omari's guilty face, of Constance's smug certainty that a foster girl would crumble. They tore it first, she said. I'm just going to make sure they feel the consequences. Over the next 48 hours, Za's apartment became a war room. Tavares' team swept in quietly. 2 investigators in plain clothes. They cloned the hard drive, pulled logs from the router, and analyzed the spy camera. They found the camera's IP address, routed through Dion's work. Computer at his IT contracting firm. Connection logs showed it had been active for 3 weeks, streaming to an off-site server. Meanwhile, Za began the impossible task of rebuilding Whispering Pines from memory. She called her 2 most trusted freelance collaborators, Imani, a brilliant 3D visualizer she'd mentored early in her career, and Darius, a landscape engineer with a photographic memory for technical specs. I know this is insane, she told them over speakerphone, but I will pay double your usual rate if you can clear your schedules for the next week. I have to recreate a year's work in days. Both agreed without hesitation. The dining table became a command center. Laptops glowed side by side. Sketch pads covered every surface. Cold pizza boxes piled up. Jalen tiptoed around, bringing his mom mugs of tea she forgot to drink. Za, what was the wattage on the heated pathway system again? Darius asked, glasses sliding down his nose. 35 watts per square foot for the main promenade, 30 for the secondary paths, Za answered, without looking up from her screen. And don't forget the soil temperature sensors at 2-foot intervals. Imani groaned dramatically, but kept rendering night lighting scenes that somehow looked even more magical than the originals. On the 4th day, Franklin Sterling called. Miss Vance, he said, voice clipped, I've received concerning information that your project is experiencing significant difficulties. Care to explain? Za's heart seized. Someone had tipped him off, likely Constance or Shanice, hoping to get her fired. Mr. Sterling, we encountered a minor technical issue, but my team is resolving it as we speak. The project will be delivered on time, and I believe the final product will exceed your expectations. He was silent for a long moment. I want to see it for myself. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., my office downtown. No excuses. Za hung up and looked at her exhausted team. We have 24 hours to pull off a miracle. They worked through the night. The next morning, they rode the elevator to the 40th floor of Sterling's glass tower. Presentation materials loaded on 3 separate laptops in case one failed. Sterling greeted them with arms crossed, expression unreadable. Show me what you've got. For 2 hours, Za spoke with the passion of someone who had nothing left to lose. She walked him through the winter garden concept, the sustainable features, the enhanced lighting design that now incorporated the supplier discount. Imani presented stunning new renderings. Darius handled every technical question with precision. When they finished, Sterling leaned back, rubbing the bridge of his nose. You know, he said finally, I got a call earlier this week saying you were falling apart. That I should start looking for a replacement designer. He paused. But what I just saw is better than your original pitch. You and your team have my respect. Proceed. Walking out into the blinding sunlight, Imani let out a whoop. Girl, I thought we were dead! Za allowed herself a small, fierce smile. Not yet. That same evening, her phone rang. Shanice's name on the screen? Za hit record immediately. Mama, it's a disaster, Shanice launched in without greeting. She somehow restored everything. The client just accepted the updated plans. What do we do now? You promised she'd break. I gave her the flash drive like you said. Dion set up the camera. We did everything. Shanice stopped, realizing the voice on the other end was too calm. This is Za, she said, ice in her tone. Keep talking. I'm listening. Click. The line went dead. Za saved the recording in 3 separate cloud accounts, password protected and time-stamped. She had her confession. Now the real fight could begin. Zavance sat at the kitchen table long after Jalen had gone to bed, the apartment silent except for the low hum of the refrigerator and the occasional wail of a siren far below on Lakeshore Drive. Spread out in front of her were printouts, photographs, and a thick manila folder that Tavares had delivered that afternoon. Every page was another nail in the coffin of the people who had tried to bury her career. Tavares's team had worked fast. First, the spy camera. The device was a cheap but effective model sold online, Wi-Fi enabled, motion activated, with cloud streaming. Router logs showed it had connected to the apartment network exactly 1 day after Dion's Wi-Fi fix-it visit. The streaming IP address traced directly to a server registered under Dion's business account. They even recovered deleted footage, grainy clips of Za working late at night, talking to herself about design decisions, pacing during phone calls with suppliers. And one chilling clip of Constance herself weeks earlier, standing in the office doorway watching Za type her password. Second, the deletion software. Tavares's investigators had posed as gas company meter readers and gained brief access to Constance's house while she was at church. In a drawer of her bedroom dresser, hidden under old church programs, they photographed the exact silver external backup drive, Za's. Initials still scratched on the underside from when she'd labeled it years ago. Next to it, the black eraser USB drive. A forensic clone confirmed the deletion program. Time-stamped logs matching the exact time Constance was in the apartment. And even remnants of the Whispering Pines folder structure before it was wiped. Third, the fake affair texts. Dion, or someone, using his computer, had created crude screenshots of a supposed conversation between Za V and a Marcus W. nude. Photos with Za's face poorly photoshopped onto another body. Tavares's digital expert tore it apart in minutes. Mismatched fonts, inconsistent shadow direction on the text bubbles, metadata showing. The images were edited on Dion's laptop, 3 days after the deletion. The Marcus number traced to a burner phone purchased with cash at a South Side Walmart. Security. Footage was already being subpoenaed. And finally, the crown jewel. Shanice's panicked phone confession. Crystal clear on the recording, Za stared at the evidence until the words blurred. She felt no triumph, only a cold, steady resolve. Omari had been sleeping at his mother's house since the night. Everything collapsed. He texted daily, checking on Jalen, asking if she needed anything, avoiding the real issues. She hadn't responded to the last 3 messages. She knew what she had to do next. She texted Omari, "We need to talk. Tomorrow, neutral ground. Lakeside Diner on 55th, 11 a.m. Bring nothing but yourself." His reply came quickly, "I'll be there." The next morning, Za dropped Jalen at school with an extra-tight hug and a promise of pizza night. Then she drove to Hyde Park. The diner was a 1950s throwback, chrome stools, checkered floor, the smell of bacon and strong coffee thick in the air. She took a corner booth facing the door, ordered black coffee, waited. Omari arrived 5 minutes late, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His usual neat beard was unkempt, eyes red-rimmed behind his glasses. He wore a heavy coat even though the diner was warm. He slid into the booth opposite her. "Say, you look—" "Don't," she said quietly. "Just listen." She laid the copies out between them like cards in a high-stakes game. First the router logs and camera photos, then the pictures of her backup drive in Constance's drawer, the forensic report on the deletion software, the expert analysis dismantling the fake texts. Finally, a printed transcript of Shanice's call, key phrases highlighted. Omari's face went through stages, confusion, then dawning horror, then gray ash. He reached for the transcript with a trembling hand. "Read the part where Shanice said, 'You promised she'd break.'" Za watched him. "Your mother, your sister, and your brother committed multiple felonies. Computer tampering, unauthorized surveillance, invasion of privacy, conspiracy. They used our son to get my password. They spied on us for weeks. They waited for the one day that could destroy my career and struck." Omari's voice was barely a whisper. "I didn't know." "You let her in," Za said, "after I begged you not to." He flinched like he'd been slapped. "I thought, she's my mother. How could I leave her screaming on the street? Because I told you something was wrong. Because for 9 years, she's treated me like trash. You chose to believe her over me." Silence stretched. A waitress refilled Za's coffee without asking. Omari finally looked up. "What do you want from me?" "The truth." "Out of your mouth." And then a choice. She leaned forward. "I'm filing a civil lawsuit. Damages for the value of my work, emotional distress, privacy violation, legal fees. The evidence is overwhelming. We'll win, but I'm giving you one chance to stand on the right side." He swallowed hard. "What does that mean?" "It means you admit what they did, publicly, in court if necessary. You support me. You cut contact with them until they take accountability. Or," she paused, "you side with them, and you lose me and Jalen." His eyes filled. "Za, please. They're my family." "So are we," she said, voice steady. "You don't get both anymore. They made sure of that when they weaponized our child and tried to ruin me." Omari stared at the evidence for a long minute. Then he pushed the papers back toward her. "I'm sorry," he whispered, stood up, left cash for his untouched coffee, walked out without looking back. Za sat there until her coffee went cold. That afternoon, she met with a civil attorney Tavares recommended, Regina Holt, a sharp black woman, in her 50s with a reputation for shredding opponents in family and tort cases. They sat in Regina's downtown office overlooking Millennium Park. Criminal charges would be tough, Regina said, flipping through the folder. DA might say no intent to cause financial harm, or claim it was a family prank gone wrong. But civil? This is a slam dunk. Intentional infliction of emotional distress, invasion of privacy under Illinois law, conversion of property, the backup drive alone. We can prove damages. How much? Realistically, since you recreated the project and kept the contract, a judge won't award the full $2.5 million. But lost time, emotional toll, punitive damages for the surveillance and malicious intent. I'd ask for $150,000. We'll settle or win between $60,000 and $100,000. Plus they pay our fees. Za nodded. That's enough. It's not about the money anymore. It's about consequences. Regina smiled grimly. Then let's serve them. The summons hit Constance's house 2 days later. Za was at her temporary workspace, a rented desk in a co-working space, when her phone rang with an unknown number. She let it go to voicemail. The message was pure fury. Have you lost your damn mind? Suing your own mother-in-law? For money? After everything we did for you? Taking in a girl with no family, no name, and this is how you repay us? I will never forgive you for this betrayal. You ungrateful little... Za saved the voicemail, forwarded it to Regina. Constance called Omari screaming. He called Za, voice shaking. She's hysterical, saying you're destroying the family. Za's response was ice. She destroyed it first. You made your choice at the diner. He didn't argue, Over the next weeks, the case moved fast. Discovery requests flew. Constance, Shanice, and Dion hired a single attorney, AI, harried public defender type, who took private cases on the side. He tried to poke holes. No direct proof. Constance pressed the delete button. The camera could have been for security. The fake texts were a joke. Regina buried him in evidence. Za kept working. Vance and Partners, her new firm name, even if it was just her, Imani. And Darius, for now, was gaining traction. The restored Whispering Pines project had earned rave previews in industry blogs. New inquiries trickled in. She hired a part-time admin, rented a small office in the West Loop with windows overlooking the river. Jalen adjusted as well as an 8-year-old could. He missed his dad on the nights Omari didn't come home. But Za kept routine steady. Homework? Basketball practice, Sunday pancakes. She started him in therapy, quiet sessions with a kind counselor who specialized in family conflict. One evening in early spring, as snow melted into slush on the sidewalks, Omari showed up at the apartment unannounced. Za opened the door to find him holding a duffel bag, looking broken. "Can I come in?" She stepped aside. He sat on the couch, head in hands. "I left her house. I've been at a hotel. I can't defend it anymore. What they did, I read everything again. The logs, the photos. Shanice's words." His voice cracked. "I was wrong. So wrong." Za stood across the room, arms folded. "And now? I'll testify. Whatever you need. I've cut them off. Told them I won't speak to them until they drop the lies and apologize. To you." She studied him for a long moment. "Why now?" "Because I almost lost everything real. You, Jalen, myself." He looked up, eyes wet. "I choose you, if you'll still have me." Za didn't answer right away. She walked to the window, watched traffic crawl along the drive. "It's not forgiveness yet," she said finally. "It's a chance. Therapy for all of us. You show up every day. You back me in court. And if you ever waver again, I won't." She turned. "We'll see." The trial date was set for late summer. In the months leading up, Za prepared relentlessly. Mock depositions with Regina, gathering character witnesses, colleagues, professors, even a former foster mother who remembered Za's determination. Financial records proving the project's value and the cost of recreation. Constance's side crumbled early. Their attorney advised settlement, but pride wouldn't let her. Shanice panicked and tried to reach Za through mutual acquaintances. It was just supposed to scare her, not actually delete anything. Dion lawyered up separately, pointing fingers at his mother. 4 months after the summons, the trial began in a Cook County courtroom. Za walked in wearing a sharp navy suit, hair pulled back, chin high. Beside her, Regina, calm and lethal. In the gallery, Imani, Darius, Tavares. Across the aisle, Constance, aged 10 years overnight, flanked by Shanice and Dayon. Omari sat on Za's side, his choice, made visible to everyone. The evidence spoke for itself. Digital forensics experts, the voicemail recordings. Shanice's confession played aloud for the judge. Omari's testimony, halting at first, then firm, detailing how he let Constance in. How he later saw the truth. Constance took the stand and unraveled. First denial, then tears, then blame shifting. She never fit in our family. Always acting better than us with her big job. The judge, a no-nonsense Latina woman in her 60s, was unmoved. Verdict, defendants jointly and severally liable. $65,000 in compensatory and punitive damages, plus full attorney fees and court costs. Constance had to sell her Florida vacation condo to cover her share. Dion took a second mortgage. Shanice's husband threatened divorce over the financial hit. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed. Local news had picked up the family betrayal angle. Constance pushed past reporters, refusing comment. Omari approached Za on the steps.
"I'm sorry," he said again.
"For everything." She looked at him. "It's too late for some things. But maybe not all." He nodded, understanding. Jalen waited in the car with a babysitter. When Za slid into the back seat, he hugged her fiercely. "Did you win, Mommy?" "Yes, baby," she said, kissing his forehead. "We did." That night, she stood on the balcony watching the city lights. The weight wasn't gone. Trust would take years to rebuild, but for the first time in months, she felt steady. She had survived the worst they could throw, and she was still standing. 3 years later, on a warm September afternoon in Chicago, The sun hung low over the river, painting the water in shimmering gold. The West Loop Street buzzed with energy, young professionals heading to rooftop bars, food trucks lining the corners, the distant rumble of the L train overhead. At the entrance of a sleek modern brick building with floor-to-ceiling windows, a small crowd gathered around a red ribbon stretched across the doorway. A polished sign gleamed above the entrance. Vance and Partners, Landscape Architecture. Zavance stood at the center of it all. Radiant in a tailored emerald green blazer and white trousers, her natural curls pulled into an elegant updo. At 37, she looked stronger, more assured than ever. The lines of stress that had once etched her face were gone, replaced by the quiet confidence of someone who had walked through fire and come out refined. In her hands, she held oversized ceremonial scissors. Beside her stood Omari, tall and proud in a navy suit, his beard neatly trimmed again. He smiled down at her with the same gentle warmth that had first won her heart a decade ago. On her other side, 11-year-old Jalen, now taller, lanky, with braces flashing whenever he grinned, held a bouquet of yellow roses, his mother's favorite. Friends, colleagues, mentors, and a handful of local media representatives filled the sidewalk. Imani and Darius, now full partners in the firm, stood front row, clapping enthusiastically. Tavares was there too, arm around his wife, nodding proudly. Za cleared her throat and stepped to the portable microphone. "Thank you all for coming today," she began, her voice steady and warm. "This space, this firm, this moment, it means more to me than I can put into words." She paused, scanning the faces. 4 years ago, I almost lost everything. A year of work destroyed, trust shattered, my family tested in ways I never imagined. But what I learned through that darkness is that where you come from doesn't write your ending. Who you choose to become does. A soft murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. I grew up in the foster system, bounced between homes, never quite belonging. People told me, sometimes to my face, that certain doors would always be closed to me, that I didn't have the right background for the big dreams. But today, standing here with my partners, my team, my family, she glanced at Omari and Jalen. I know the truth. Hard work, integrity, and the courage to stand up for yourself. Those are what open doors. And once they're open, nobody can slam them shut again. Applause broke out, loud and genuine. Za smiled. Whispering Pines Park, the project that nearly broke me, was completed 2 years ago. It's now one of the most celebrated private green spaces in the Midwest. National magazines have featured it. New clients call us every week because of it. But more than that, it taught me resilience. And it brought us the most incredible team. She gestured to Imani and Darius. These two stayed up nights with me when everything was gone, helping rebuild from memory. Today, they're equity partners. This firm belongs to all of us. More applause. Za lifted the scissors. So without further ado, welcome to the official home of Vance and Partners. She cut the ribbon cleanly. Red fabric fluttered to the ground. Cheers erupted. Jalen handed her the roses with a dramatic bow that made everyone laugh. Inside, the office was everything Za had envisioned, open plan with natural light flooding in. Living green walls, sustainable materials, collaborative workspaces, and a large conference table made from reclaimed wood. A gallery wall showcased renderings of past and current projects. Whispering Pines prominently featured. Guests mingled over champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Catered by a Black-owned Southside restaurant, laughter and conversation filled the air. Tavares pulled Za aside near the window overlooking the river. "You did it," he said, clinking his glass against hers. "From that coffee shop where you looked like the world had ended, to this." She smiled softly. "Couldn't have gathered the evidence without you." He shrugged. "You would have found a way. You always do." Across the room, Omari watched her with quiet pride. Their road back had been long and deliberate. After the trial, they'd started couples therapy immediately, weekly sessions for over a year. Individual therapy for Omari, too, to unpack the blind loyalty he'd carried toward his mother. Trust was rebuilt slowly, small promises kept, hard conversations had, boundaries set and respected. He had kept his word. No contact with Constance, Janice, or Dion for the first 2 years. When limited contact resumed for Jalen's sake only, it was strictly supervised and on Za's terms. Constance herself had never apologized. Pride wouldn't allow it. She'd sold the Florida condo, paid her share of the judgment, and retreated into bitterness. Holiday cards went unanswered. Jalen saw her twice a year, at neutral locations, with Omari present, never alone. The boy understood enough now to feel the weight of it. But therapy helped him process the confusion. Shanice's marriage had survived, barely. Dion moved to Atlanta for a fresh start. The family fractured, but Za no longer carried guilt for it. Consequences were theirs to own. Later that evening, after the guests had gone and the office lights dimmed, Za, Omari, and Jalen walked home along the Chicago Riverwalk. The city sparkled around them, skyscrapers lit in jewel tones, boats gliding silently below. Jalen skipped ahead, then ran back. "Mom, are you happy?" he asked suddenly, looking up at her with those serious brown eyes. Za stopped walking. She knelt down to his level, brushing a curl from his forehead. "Yes, baby. I'm happy." He tilted his head. "Because of the new office?" She smiled. "Partly, but mostly because everything we have now, we earned it. With honest work. Nobody handed it to us, and nobody can ever take it away." Jalen nodded solemnly, as if he understood more than an 11-year-old should. Omari reached for Za's hand. She let him take it. They continued walking. The river flowed steadily beside them, reflecting the city lights like scattered stars. Za thought back to that darkest morning, 3 years ago, sitting in the kitchen at dawn, evidence spread before her, wondering if she'd ever feel whole again. She squeezed Omari's hand. The girl who once stood outside wrought iron fences, dreaming of a world that didn't want her, had built her own world now. One where she decided the gates, the gardens, the rules. And no one, not family, not circumstance, not the past, would ever make her feel small again. As they turned toward home, the September sky deepened to indigo. Za looked up at the emerging stars and whispered to herself the words she'd carried since childhood, that life is for the likes of me now. And it was.